Welcome back to the Broad Street Sports Podcast featuring Zachary Chaby, and today I'll be giving you my Week 14 reactions going from Thursday Night Football to Sunday Night Football and giving my thoughts on the Cowboys and Bengals game. So first, we're going to kick it off with the Packers and the Lions. This was a huge clash between two powerhouses of the NFC North, and the Lions were able to get out of there barely with a 34-31 win on a game-winning field goal as time expires by Jake Bates. Overall, looking at this game, the Lions' offense seemed like it was playing well. Jared Goff threw an interception to Keyshawn Nixon, but really other than that, they felt like they were firing how they usually fire. And for the Packers, it was slow at the beginning, but then getting Josh Jacobs active in the red zone, had 3 touchdowns on the day, so only 60 yards rushing, but still getting him in the end zone is huge. And then Christian Watson had a couple huge catches for him to have over 4 catches and over 100 yards. But really, other than that, it just came down to the Lions coming down to it just came down to them getting more clutch plays at the very end. Just getting the ball to Amon-Ra late, Montgomery having some key runs, and Goff just making the plays he needed to make. And overall for the Lions, they look like one of the most dangerous teams as they've been. Like, they look like one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL as they have been most of the year. And this comes to no surprise, especially for me. They've been one of the best teams, if not the best team all year, and I just think it's going to continue. But they got a tough matchup ahead against Buffalo. And then for Green Bay, they're a really good team. I feel like they can give someone a run for their money in the playoffs. It just comes down to they can finish the job against someone. So she'll be interesting to see on that part. Then moving on to the 1 o'clock slate games, we had the Steelers getting out of Pittsburgh with a two touchdown win against the Browns. Overall, Russell Wilson played a very solid game, had 2 passing touchdowns in the day, even without having George Pickens in this game, but it really didn't matter. Najee got in for a touchdown. Jameis Winston didn't play the best game compared to like he did last week. Jerry Jeudy got in the end zone once again, but wasn't as involved as he was the week before. And overall, this was just great defense played by the Steelers, and they just overall played their style of football, and it resulted in them getting a win and them moving to 10-3, and very much a viable threat in the AFC as we move on. And for the Browns, just keep on churning. They'll have to decide what they want to do in the offseason at this point. So moving on to the next game, this one was between two teams that, let's just say, aren't the greatest, the Saints and the Giants, and it kind of showed it in this game. The Saints barely escaped it on a blocked field goal by Brian Brzee to get out of there with a 14-11 win. The Saints looked like they were having good sustained offense at the beginning with a Keandre Miller touchdown, and then I don't know who scored the other touchdown. But it was just really slow for them in the second half. And the Giants are the Giants at this point. They've just been a dumpster fire all year, and it's gonna be I think clean house next year. Possibly new head coach, new GM, definitely a new quarterback. But just for the Giants, they just got to get this season over as soon as possible because it has been a great one, and I don't think this came to anyone's surprise. And for the Saints, just a win if they want, like I said in last week's episode, just a win that if they wanted any chance of making the playoffs, they needed to have. And should be interesting to see if they can go on any type of run because the NFC South is still anyone games after the Falcons choking and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers looking good these past couple weeks. So moving on to the next game, the Dolphins were able to come back against the Jets and take it to overtime and win on a Tua Tagovailoa pass to Jonnu Smith in overtime for the touchdown. Overall in this game, Tua played very solid, had 2 touchdowns in the day, 1 to Tyreek and 1 to Jonnu. Got it to his guys like Jalen Waddle, Reek, Devon Achane got in the end zone again. And really other than that, Dolphins, they're 6-7 right now. I think they've won 3 out of their last 4, so that's good for them overall. And then for the Jets, it's like the Giants. It's been a dumpster fire overall in New York this year between the Giants and the Jets, and I could just see them both, like I said, cleaning house and the big moves coming ahead. Especially they need to find a way to retool this aging roster that became aging so quickly and try to keep those young core guys so they can develop and try to build this up once again. So because they've been eliminated now and have now missed the playoffs for 14 straight years. So moving on to the next game, another game that was really rough if you had to watch this. Luckily, I didn't. The Jaguars just escaped the win against the Titans by the final score of 10-6. In this game, Mac Jones had to start, played terrible, had 2 interceptions. Tank Bigsby was their only touchdown, I believe. Brian Thomas had 6 catches for 86 yards, and the Titans were just able to sustain any offense. Tony Pollard had over 100 yards on the day. Calvin Ridley had, I think, close to 60 yards, and overall the Jaguars are just able to escape with a win. Not much to really talk about in this game, I think, in my opinion. Moving on to the next game, we had the Falcons and the Vikings. Kirk Cousins returned to Minnesota, and it definitely wasn't a good one for him. He threw 2 picks in this game, and now is up to 8 interceptions in his last 4 games as the Falcons have fallen to 6-7 and no longer in first place of the NFC South. So that is definitely something interesting to see. And then for this one, Sam Darnold just showed that the Vikings made the right decision, apparently. He looked great in this game, had 5 passing touchdowns, 3 of them to Jordan Addison, another one to Justin Jefferson. And just overall, he looked great in this game, just getting to his receivers. Aaron Jones, like I said, Jordan Addison looked great. Justin Jefferson did what he needed to do. TJ Hawkinson was involved. And overall, the Vikings, they just look like a great team this year. Their defense is playing great. Josh Metellus had an interception, and then Byron Murphy had a one-handed interception late in the game to pretty much seal it. So overall, for the Vikings, a good win, and for the Falcons, they better figure it out quickly. Or I think it's definitely time to consider putting Michael Penix in. But if they want any chance at the playoffs, they got to figure out what's going on with Kirk Cousins. So moving on to the next game, the Panthers and the Eagles. Watching this game, I watched the entire game. It was rough to watch for the Eagles. This is definitely one of the I don't understand at this point. We just played down to the competition against these teams. I know Carolina played pretty solid in this game, and they've been playing very solid the past couple weeks, and I'm not going to discard that. But at the same time, I felt like the Eagles should have dominated this game more than they did, and they barely escaped it. The passing game looks dreadful right now. It ranks 31st in the league, just ahead of the Patriots. They need to find a way to sustain that a little bit more. I'm not saying go completely away from the run game. I think, in my honest opinion, they need to find a way to get the run game more involved, more earlier in the game than they have. They got to get the run game going, because once the run game gets going, the play action game is on fire. Once you get something that's sustaining your offense going, the rest of the offense will work, and the Eagles need to realize that, or it's going to be really bad for them, and it could be a part 2 of last year, I think, in my opinion. But they need to figure it out now, because they have Pittsburgh, they have Washington, and then they have Dallas and New York. And if you can figure it out in these next 4 games, going into the playoffs, it's going to be hard for anyone to beat you, in my opinion, if you're home, if you're away. So hopefully the Eagles figure it out. And for the Panthers, they just keep growing. They've had some impressive performances. Chuba Hubbard looked great. Bryce Young was able to escape the pressure a lot and make some fantastic plays. And if it wasn't for an Xavier Legette drop, they might have been walking out of Philadelphia with an upset win. But really, other than that, the Eagles need to figure some things out. Congratulations to Saquon Barkley for breaking the all-time Eagles leading rushing record, beating LaShawn McCoy's 2013 record. He's up to 1,600 yards. I think it's 1627 if I'm not mistaken. But really, other than that, the Eagles, they need to figure some things out. Hopefully, they do it sooner rather than later. And for the Panthers, I think just keep improving, and they can make some noise next year. So moving on to the next game, the final 1 o'clock game, we had Tampa Bay getting a nice win over the Raiders. Baker Mayfield had some bad turnovers in this game, but overall the Buccaneers needed to make some plays when they did. They neutralized Brock Bowers in this game. And for the Raiders, they lost their quarterback O'Connell for the year, and I think they're going to have to turn to Desmond Ridder the rest of the year. But at this point, they'll be drafting a new quarterback in the draft this year. If it's not Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, it will be a quarterback for sure. But it's just going to be interesting to see what they do with that. And for the Buccaneers, I mean, at this point now, they sit at top of the NFC South looking for their 4th straight division titles. So it should be interesting to see what happens in that. But moving on to the 4 o'clock slate games, we had the Seahawks beating the Cardinals again, officially sweeping them on the season, which is huge for them. Now that they have a firm lead of the NFC West at 8-5, the Rams just below them. But overall in this game, Seattle, Geno Smith was able to get it to his guys like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Noah Fant, and Zach Charbonnet had a massive day for them with the absence of Kenneth Walker. He looked great, had over 100 yards rushing, and popped one for 54 yards and a touchdown. And for the Cardinals offense, Kyler Murray didn't play great, had 2 interceptions, one to Ernest Jones and another one to Kobe Bryant. And they really just tried playing catch-up in the second half, and it just wasn't enough for them in my opinion, and it led to the result that it did. So great win for the Seahawks, and for the Cardinals, they've been impressive this season, so not too much to complain about, but they really need to figure out what they want to do with Kyler Murray because he still has a lot left to be shown. It's just he's not showing it right now these past couple weeks. So moving on to the next game, the 49ers just completely destroyed the Bears, and the Niners look great, even though with their injuries they're dealing with right now with McCaffrey and Jordan Mason. Garendo looked great. George Kittle tore up the Bears' defense. Deebo Samuel wasn't really much of an effect, and Jawan Jennings had a touchdown on the day, and I think either over or close to 100 yards. For the Bears at this point, nothing's going to change, even their head coach getting fired. Their offense has just been dreadful this year. If it looks good one week, it will look terrible the next week. It's just so inconsistent, and their defense has been on the field way too much to be any consistent in a way that they can make stops because they're always on the field. And for this one, the Niners keep themselves very firm in the playoff spot. A playoff position, and the Bears just looking forward to next year at this point. Moving on to what possibly could have been the game of the year, the Rams just escape a win against the Bills by the final score 44-42. Josh Allen played exceptional in this game, had 6 total touchdowns, the first quarterback since Otto Graham against the Detroit Lions in a championship game for which with the quarterback having 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns, had 6 total touchdowns on the day. Looked great. Looks like he's trying to firmly place himself in the MVP as the number one person to win the MVP, and I really can't disagree with this point. He's looked exceptional, and I think he's in a very firm position to do that. And for the Rams, Matt Stafford looked great, got it to his guys, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron had a touchdown or 2, and the Rams just did what they needed to do. I think, in my opinion, like Dan Orlovsky said earlier today on Get Up, they're one of the most dangerous teams. I don't know if they can win the whole thing, but they're definitely going to give a team a tough matchup if they somehow get into the playoffs. So I would definitely look out for that. But overall, the Bills probably their chances are getting lesser and lesser of trying to get the number 1 seed, but still they look great. They still look great in this game. Their defense was a little rough though. And for the Rams, a win they needed to have. They wanted to stay anywhere in the playoff positioning. So moving on to Sunday Night Football, we had the Chiefs barely beating the Chargers on a kick that went off the upright and in by Matthew Wright to clinch the Chiefs, I think, 8th or 9th straight division title in the AFC West. In this game overall, the Chiefs were just playing great defense. The Chargers came alive in the second half and were able to take a 14-13 lead. And then the Chargers kicked a field goal late to go up by 1, and the Chiefs just took all the time on the clock and were able to kick a field goal. So not really much to talk about in this game. Both these offenses were really stagnant, and it just came down to the final play. So moving on to tonight's game, Monday Night Football, between the Bengals and the Cowboys. Overall in this game, I think it's going to be very high scoring. Both these defenses aren't great, and I can expect a lot of points in my opinion. So looking at this game as a whole, though, I think the Bengals will win this game based off I like their offense a little bit more than what the Cowboys has to offer. So overall in this game, I have the Bengals winning by the final score of 35-30. Like I said, I think it'd be very high scoring, but I think the Bengals will be able to get out of Dallas with a win. So overall, these are my Week 14 reactions. Thank you guys so much for watching. Probably be an upload this Thursday. Try to switch it up, maybe get as much content as I can, because I know I've been only subjecting to college football and NFL, but maybe I can get some other stuff involved. But really, other than that, I will talk to you guys later. Enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy your rest of your night, and enjoy the Monday Night Football tonight.